I keep having dreams where I'm in Jerusalem and confused. I'm not quite sure where I am, and I'm not quite sure who I am. Sometimes our minds and bodies can be centered, but our dreams will show us that our souls might have some catching up to do, and I think my soul has some catching up to do. I just got back on Wednesday night. I'm sitting in Old Jerusalem, near the Jaffa Gate, having a cup of coffee and maybe a pomegranate juice. I've been having all my meals at the same cafe because I'm tired, and I like the familiarity of returning to the same table and the same menu. It's comforting, and I've gotten to know the guy who works there, Benny. There are 3 men chatting at the table next to mine. You can see them right in the photo. And one of the men, the bald guy right there, turns to ask me where I'm from, and I tell him this is a very typical conversation for travelers. And he asks me, how am I liking Israel? And I hesitate. I'm not going to lie, and I'm not going to flatter him. I say, it's a complicated place. And his eyes harden. What's complicated about it? But I won't let myself be intimidated, and I say, it's hard. And now he's getting pretty hostile. What's hard about it? We stare at each other. The cafe owner, Benny, sees the tension and comes over to me. He's teasing, he's gonna break the tension. And he sort of leans down to me and he says, you know what we say here, don't worry, be. And as I'm ready to say happy, he goes, be Jewish. Which is actually on a t-shirt. There are all kinds of really funny t-shirts for sale in Jerusalem. That's one of them, happy face. And I shake my head like, you're so corny. And I say, I think actually, I don't say it, I think I am Jewish. And I'm Orthodox. And I'm Protestant. And I'm all these subgroups with very distinct claims to this holy city. Subgroups that don't usually, when I'm home, feel like a conflict. But this trip has been a collision of my multiple identities. Jewish on my father's side, Orthodox Christian on my mother's side, Russian Orthodox. And there's a group, just so happens, of Slovak pilgrims in my hotel who speak the language of my grandparents. Look like them too. She looks like my great-grandmother. One of the subgroups represented in Jerusalem that I am not is Muslim, but Benny is. The hostile man has paid and vacated his table with his friends, and Benny shrugs. He says he's Jewish. He's an artist. I'm Muslim. We're friends. We're all friends. I love everybody. Maybe he really does, or maybe this is something he tells tourists like me who are shaken by the ancient divisions represented by Jerusalem and the disturbing realities of life in Israel. But I should back up. I thought I was going on a Holy Land tour, visiting the places where Jesus walked, and I did. But my American tour guide, Stephen Martin, arranged through the UU Christian Fellowship, is a man who has both produced documentaries on the Holocaust that are on permanent display at the Holocaust Museum Yad Vashem, and who has also gotten to know Palestinians over his many trips to Israel, and he has become very interested in the Palestinian cause. Steve's position is, and it's a fair one, is that Americans have a lot of access to the pro-Israel point of view here, but often don't know anything about the Palestinian experience. So he has arranged for our small group to learn about it while we are touring the usual pilgrimage sites. We are staying in Bethlehem, which before I went, I imagined to be a small and charming and touristy little town. That's actually it right there, and whoop, there it is. I sort of know before I go that it's on the West Bank and that that's Palestinian occupied land, but I don't really understand what that means until I arrive and I notice the razor wire fences that snake all around Jerusalem. And I noticed from my cab on the way from Tel Aviv to the West Bank that we have to go through checkpoints. I see the contested settlements that are in the news all the time with my own eyes. I see how they are looming up from the landscape, beautiful, clean, white limestone, how modern they look. And as I'm taking all this in and the news is really starting to become real to me, I find that I must also come to terms with my own preconceptions about what an Arab Muslim looks like and sounds like. And I'm really embarrassed. I have never examined that prejudice or that stereotype. I have never really visited it seriously. I was expecting some sort of Alibaba stereotype, I think, which bears no resemblance to the sophisticated, handsome, gracious, hospitable people I met, the Palestinians I met. And I'm so embarrassed. But again, what else have I seen on the media in my own country? I vaguely know that Palestinians have been under Israeli occupation for a long time, since 1948 at least. But I don't really know what that means. You'll hear that's my common refrain. I don't know that families were moved from their homes into refugee camps in 1948 but never allowed to return. I'm so embarrassed by my ignorance. I just assumed that a refugee camp is by definition a temporary place, a shelter, because I'm naive. This is Aida Camp, which we passed by. The land on which it sits actually belongs to the Vatican, interesting, and is supported by money from the United Nations, as are all refugee camps, something else I didn't know. We passed Aida refugee camp, on our way to viewing a section of the separation wall. This barrier snakes over 500 miles all over Israel, sometimes concrete walls like what you're seeing, 2 times the height of the Berlin Wall. Sometimes, as I said, a fence of razor wire with trenches on either side. This is to prevent suicide bombers from getting into Israel and killing Israelis. Although my understanding is that the plans for the barrier wall were in place before suicide bombings became the tragic phenomenon that they did. Good fences make good neighbors is the party line on the wall. I wouldn't call this a fence. I felt that it was important for you to be able to see this. This is Trump's dream for our Mexican border. Claire Anastas is a Palestinian Christian woman whose family has lived on the West Bank for many generations. The Israeli government erected the wall in her front yard, cutting her off from her property. She described to us the frustrations of having no right to petition this decision and even to know in advance that it was imminent. She said, the children went to school one day and they came back and we were buried alive in concrete. She has created nativity scenes, because this is Bethlehem, with a wall made out of olive wood. And she's holding that. You might be able to see that. There's the wall. It's like right in front of her shop, and it covers all her property in her house on all sides. But I should back up. I have also seen a wall that has great positive significance in Israel, one that stands as a symbol not of dominance but endurance. And I'm speaking, of course, of the Great Western Wall, of the temple that was destroyed by the Romans in the year 70. It is all that is left of the great temple, this wall now known as the Wailing Wall. Here at the Western Wall, I feel pride and poignancy in my Jewish heritage. I am a Weinstein, a grandchild of Russian and Romanian Jews, Minette Sable, my grandmother, and Albert Jonah Weinstein, my grandfather. Our branch of the family tree survived and flourished in America, while all the other members of our family in Europe were murdered by the Nazis. The state of Israel is a place with tremendous resonance for me as a Weinstein. The moment I saw the sign, "Welcome to Israel," at the Tel Aviv airport, tears came to my eyes. Israel. This is a place where they can't kill us. The "they" is vague and broad. This is a deep sentiment in the heart of every Jew or everyone who is identified as a Jew among anti-Semites, whether or not they are technically Jewish, as I am not, because my mother is not Jewish. This wall is about devotion. It is about family. It is about faith and hope. People of all faiths visit it and tuck their prayers into its crevices. I, of course, write a very long prayer on a piece of notebook paper. It's too big to fit into the little crevices, so I have to just rip off the final sentences, the last of which is, "May we all survive." And I notice that other people tucking prayers into the wall or praying with it back away so as not to turn their back on it as they depart. This must be a sign of respect, I assume, and so I back up. Rather than walk away from the wall, I back up. I should back up even further and tell you about several weeks ago, as I was preparing for this trip, and I went into the Verizon store on Vinnon Square to get my phone upgraded and to equip it for international usage. And the clerk, who's a friendly young man who looks vaguely Middle Eastern, and he has a big smile and an accent, asks me, "Where are you going?" And I say to him, "Israel and Palestine." And because I say "and Palestine," giving it legitimacy that many Americans will not, he says to me with total joy, "I'm Palestinian. I come from Bethlehem." And I say, "Oh my God, are you kidding me? We're like basing our tour in Bethlehem." And he says, "No way." And he's freaking out. He says, "You have to have dinner with my family." And I say, "Absolutely, that sounds amazing." So one evening in Bethlehem, I go down to the lobby of the hotel, and I am picked up by this very polite man and his son and led to a car where there is another grown man, a nephew, waiting, and I shake hands all around. Their English is limited and my Arabic is non-existent. And I get into the car, and it does occur to me briefly, like, what am I doing? This could be really, really sketchy. But I think, well, I'm going for it. And as soon as I'm settled in the car, I hear these little munchkin noises from behind me, and I turn around, and popped up are these three little faces of these children who are in the way back seat. And they're completely adorable. And we giggle, and we have a wonderful time. And this little one, I almost stole and took home with me because she is a pistol. We drive across Bethlehem into the family house finally, where I'm fed this incredible meal in the bosom of the Hazem's family, the Shaheens, which seems to never end. I meet all the children and the new baby and grandpa and cousins and other family members who are coming into what is obviously the central hearth of the extended family. And oh boy, do we eat. And we FaceTime with Hazem in the US, where he's in the middle of his day at Verizon in Swampscott. Kind of insane. We eat piles of pilaf and meat, and the men watch soccer. After dinner, we pass around the shisha pipe, which is an aromatic apple-scented pellet. It tastes smooth and pretty. It's a nice communal ritual. Even the children partake. I show the children videos of my dog on my phone, and I sing songs for them because they ask me to. I sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow and some Christmas carols, Little Town of Bethlehem. And we all belt out a few verses of My Heart Will Go On because Hazem's sister and brother-in-law love Celine Dion. I know that my time on the West Bank may be questioned, though, by Israeli security as I depart from Tel Aviv, and I'm advised to delete all the photos of the separation wall from my phone before I leave the country. Just to be safe, I also delete my photos of Hazem's family, first uploading them to Dropbox. Because what is an American woman of Jewish heritage doing having dinner with Palestinian Muslims on the West Bank? I don't want any questions. A few days later, I spend half the day at Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial Museum, an indescribably powerful and enormous museum with exhibits that manage to chronicle the rise of the Nazis and to recreate in some measure the grandeur and scope of the European Jewry that the Third Reich almost completely wiped out. 3-4 hours pass as I slowly tour the rooms filled with artifacts, documents, descriptions, photos, videos, and explanations of how exactly the Nazis and their collaborators all over Europe tortured, terrorized, and exterminated Jews, the Roma, the Gypsies, homosexuals, Catholics, disabled people. In a daze, I stop at the bookstore of Yad Vashem, and a kind woman there offers me tea, which I gratefully accept. People drop in and out. 3 Danish Christians who are visiting. A Swiss-Danish woman, Jewish woman rather, who emigrated to Israel and wants to make sure that the Danes are not there as missionaries trying to convert Jews. 2 Finnish Protestant clergy, very kind and interested in understanding more. All of them want to ask me, the American, about the parallels between Trump's policies and those of Hitler. They all see America as being in great danger, and so do I. I also know that Trump is very popular with some Israelis, and so I'm cautious in my conversation. Sure enough, a man enters and listens for a while, but then interrupts and imperiously informs us all that we really dodged a bullet in the election. Now, I don't know if he's an American or what, but as soon as he mentions illegals, I feel a tsunami wave of rage come over me, and I actually rise to my feet and I roar at this man. I tell him he is a disgrace to this place of witness upon which we stand. I tell him that our God commands us to love the stranger, to offer hospitality, to which he weakly replies, I do as long as they're legal. I shout at him, how can he be in this very place that chronicles the horrors of man's inhumanity and failure to protect each other's basic liberties, the evil of apathy and of hatred? How can he not have learned from our history? I shout at him, how can he? And finally the man backs out of the bookstore and I see him skittering away. And I am drained. I'm a little embarrassed, but not much. I am torn. I have backed up too many times, and I know I've had it. I've learned too much. I've learned enough. And I can't continue the tour, whose pace is too exhausting for me, 8 to 10 hour days, to keep up without adequate time to process all that I am encountering. I do not want to return to you in exhausted, fried condition. I feel that I have been in a physically demanding family therapy session for 10 days, witnessing the devastating effects of generational trauma play out. And I am helpless to aid the suffering victims of it. I only know that I want to be strong and able to do the work that helps the current generation, or please God, the next generation, to heal and help find ways that we can let each other live, and even, please God, maybe to love and cherish and appreciate one another. And I know that Israel and Palestine won't be my mission field for this work, but that my mission field for this work will be here with you, in our own land. We have so much evidence of how much our love and courage is needed in this world. We don't need to cross thousands of miles to find that, although I am really glad I did. And I promise you I have wonderful and beautiful and happy things from this journey to share with you. Let me back up. The Holy Land kind of knocked me down, but I will know that together I can get back up. You will help me up to the holy ground of faith and commitment upon which we stand and live together. Thank you.